Allison Wright smoothed down her formal diplomatic uniform and took a deep breath. The air inside the ship felt recycled and stale after 3 weeks of travel, but soon they would dock with the Galactic Council's massive station. Through the viewport, the enormous structure gleamed like a metal flower, its petal-shaped docking bays extending outward to welcome ships from 100 worlds. 2 minutes to docking, announced the pilot's voice over the intercom. Daniel Keller, Allison's assistant, appeared at her side. His eyes were wide with excitement despite his attempts to maintain a professional demeanor. "This is it," he whispered. "First human diplomatic mission to the Galactic Council. Are you nervous?" Allison nodded slightly. "I've prepared for every possible scenario. Hostility, indifference, curiosity. But yes, I'm nervous. We represent all of Earth here." The small team of 5 human diplomats gathered near the airlock. They had trained for months for this moment, studying the limited information they had on the dozen major alien species that formed the core of the Galactic Council. "Remember," Allison said to her team, "we are newcomers here. We need to be respectful, cautious, and clear in our communication. Our goal is simple: establish Earth as a peaceful trading partner and potential future member of the Council." The ship shuddered slightly as it connected with the docking bay. Lights around the airlock turned green, and with a hiss the door began to slide open. Allison stepped forward, ready to face whatever alien greeting awaited them. She had expected perhaps 1 or 2 representatives, maybe a small security detail. Instead, hundreds of aliens filled the arrival hall. Many held devices that seemed to be recording. Strange banner-like objects hung from the high ceiling. The noise level dropped noticeably as the humans appeared. A tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms stepped forward. 2 of its hands were raised in what seemed like a greeting gesture. It wore elaborate robes with symbols that Allison didn't recognize. "Earth Negotiators," the alien said in surprisingly good English. "I am Zeldrax, Council Welcomer. Your arrival brings great excitement to our station." Allison bowed slightly. "Thank you for this welcome. We come in peace and friendship, hoping to establish diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council." A murmur spread through the crowd of aliens at her words. Zeldrax's large eyes blinked rapidly, and the alien leaned closer. Of course. The great warriors of Earth speak of peace. We are honored by your restraint." Allison frowned slightly. "I think there may be a misunderstanding. We are not warriors, we are diplomats." This statement caused an even stronger reaction among the aliens. Some made gestures that might have been their equivalent of laughter. Others stepped back slightly. Zeldrax's mouth formed what seemed like a smile. "Your humility is noted and respected, Earth Negotiator. Please follow me to the reception area where representatives of the Council member species await your arrival." As they walked through wide corridors, lined with curious onlookers, Allison whispered to Daniel, "Something's not right. They seem to think we're some kind of military power." Daniel nodded. "Did you notice? Some of them look almost afraid of us." The reception hall was enormous, with a high, domed ceiling painted with what appeared to be star maps. Different groups of aliens stood in clusters, their appearances varying wildly. Some were insect-like, others resembled reptiles, and a few were so strange that Allison couldn't even guess at their biology. A short, furry alien with large ears approached them. Immediately, "Humans, I am Critic of the Meludians. Your broadcasts have reached our world for decades. Your war documentaries are studied extensively in our military academies." Allison exchanged a confused glance with Daniel. "War documentaries? I'm afraid I don't understand." "Your historical battle recordings," Critique continued enthusiastically. "What you call action movies. The feats of your warriors like Rocky Balboa and John McClane are legendary." Daniel coughed to hide his surprise. "Those are fictional characters from entertainment media, not real soldiers." The alien's ears twitched. Yes, your entertainment. We understand this is how you describe your combat training simulations." Before Allison could correct this misunderstanding, they were surrounded by more aliens, each seemingly eager to meet the humans. "Is it true that human children engage in war games called laser tag to develop tactical skills?" asked a green, Reptilian alien. Do humans really consider jumping from high buildings a recreational activity? Inquired another. We have heard that humans can survive being shot multiple times. Is this common? Allison tried repeatedly to explain that Earth was not a warrior culture, that humans were actually physically weaker than many species. But each denial seemed to reinforce the aliens' belief that humans were being modest about their combat prowess. Hours later, exhausted from the reception, Allison and her team retreated to their assigned quarters. The rooms were comfortable but clearly designed for beings with different proportions, making the furniture slightly awkward to use. This is a disaster, Allison said, slumping into a chair. They think we're some kind of super soldiers. How are we supposed to establish normal diplomatic relations? Dr. Susan Rivera, the team's cultural expert, looked thoughtful. Actually, this might work in our favor. They respect us, fear us even. That could give us significant advantages in trade negotiations. But it's based on a complete misunderstanding, Allison protested. They think our movies are real. Consider our position, Frank Miller, the economic advisor, pointed out. Earth has only 3 interstellar ships. We have no real military presence in space. If they knew how vulnerable we actually are. So you're suggesting we maintain this deception? Allison asked, frowning. Not deception exactly, Susan said carefully. More like not correcting their misconceptions right away, at least until we better understand the political situation here. Daniel pulled out his tablet and began taking notes. We should review our negotiation strategy in light of this. If they're predisposed to respect us, we might be able to secure much better terms on the mining rights for the asteroid belt. Allison sighed deeply. She had spent months preparing careful, logical arguments to present Earth's case to the Council. She had researched negotiation techniques, prepared responses to possible objections, and created detailed presentations about Earth's resources and needs. None of that would be necessary if the aliens already believed humans were fearsome warriors who should be appeased. Fine, she said finally. We'll use this misunderstanding to Earth's advantage, but I want it on record that I don't like it. Later that night, as the others slept, Allison stood at the viewport in their quarters watching the stars. A small notification appeared on the glass indicating an incoming transmission from Earth. How did it go? Asked the voice of Director Matthews, her superior at the Earth Diplomatic Corps. They think we're warriors, Allison replied. They've been watching our action movies and think they're real. There was a pause, then Matthews laughed. That's unexpected. Can you use it? Yes, Allison admitted. But I spent 6 months preparing my negotiation strategies. None of them involved intimidating aliens with our non-existent military might. Adapt, Allison. That's what diplomacy is about. I know, she said quietly. I just wish I could show them what human diplomacy really looks like. There will be time for that, Matthews assured her. For now, secure the best position for Earth that you can. As the call ended, Allison returned to staring at the stars, feeling oddly disappointed that her carefully prepared arguments would go unused. She had wanted to win through skill and intelligence, not through a mistaken reputation. Tomorrow, the real negotiations would begin. And despite the advantage they now held, Allison couldn't help feeling that somehow they had already lost something important. 6 months had passed since Earth's first contact with the Galactic Council. Allison right now had her own office on the massive space station, with a small nameplate that read, Earth Chief Negotiator, in both English and the common galactic language. The office had large windows that looked out into the depths of space, reminding her of how far she was from home. Allison studied the document on her screen with a frown. Earth had somehow managed to secure favorable trade agreements with 17 different alien civilizations. None of these agreements had required the complex negotiation tactics she had spent years mastering. Instead, aliens seemed eager to please the warrior humans and often accepted Earth's first offers without question. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Daniel Keller entered, followed by 2 new members of the Earth team, Captain Frank Howard, a military advisor sent from Earth, and Dr. Lisa Palmer, a cultural liaison. The Draconis representatives are ready for our meeting, Daniel said. They control the richest mining sector in this part of the galaxy. Director Matthews says this deal is extremely important. Allison nodded and stood up. I've prepared 15 different approaches based on what we know about Draconis psychology and cultural values. Do we really need all that? Frank asked. He was a tall man with short gray hair who seemed uncomfortable in his civilian clothes. So far, these aliens just give us whatever we ask for. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be prepared, Allison replied sharply. One day they'll realize we're not the fearsome warriors they think we are. The meeting room was on the other side of the station. As they walked, many aliens moved aside respectfully. Some even bowed to the humans. Dr. Palmer observed these interactions with scientific curiosity. The misunderstanding has grown, she noted quietly. Now they seem to think merely being near humans is dangerous. I heard some Zoraxians talking about how humans can kill with their bare hands, Daniel added. Apparently they watched a boxing match broadcast and thought it was some kind of death ritual. Frank chuckled. If they're scared of boxing, they should see mixed martial arts. This isn't funny, Allison said. We're lying to them, even if we're not saying anything directly false. They entered the large meeting room where 5 Draconis representatives waited. The Draconis were tall, with scaled skin that shifted colors based on their emotions. Currently, they all displayed a pale blue that the humans had learned indicated respect or possibly fear. Allison had just begun her carefully prepared opening statement when alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed and a computerized voice announced something in the galactic common language. What's happening? Frank asked, instantly alert. One of the Draconis answered, their scales now pulsing with orange patterns. Pirates. The Crimson Claw Fleet has entered this sector. They sometimes raid isolated stations. The building shook violently. In the confusion, a piece of ceiling broke loose directly above one of the Draconis representatives. Without thinking, Frank lunged forward and tackled the alien to the ground, pulling them away from the falling debris. The room went silent except for the blaring alarms. The other Draconis stared at Frank with their scales now white with shock. You move so fast, one of them whispered. The stories are true. Frank helped the Draconis to their feet, looking confused. Anyone would have done the same. Another tremor shook the station. The communication system crackled and a rough voice spoke in heavily accented common language. Attention station residents. This is Captain Vex of the Crimson Claw. We have disabled your defenses. Surrender all valuable resources and we will leave without further damage. The Draconis and other aliens in the room looked terrified. One of the station officials, a small green alien, wrung its 6 hands nervously. The security forces are on the other side of the station. By the time they arrive, the pirates will have taken what they want. All eyes turned to the humans. The unspoken expectation hung in the air. Allison felt a surge of frustration. She had spent weeks preparing for this negotiation, and now it was being interrupted by space pirates. Without thinking about how it would be perceived, she walked to the communication panel and pressed the response button. This is Earth Negotiator Allison Wright. You are interrupting an important meeting. You have exactly 1 chance to retreat before you regret your actions. Her voice came out sharp with annoyance. She wasn't trying to sound threatening. She was genuinely irritated at the timing of this attack. The pirates didn't respond immediately. When Captain Vex's voice returned, it sounded uncertain. Humans? There are humans on the station? Yes, Allison replied, still annoyed. And you're wasting our time. A long silence followed. Then, to everyone's surprise, the pirate captain spoke again. We didn't know humans were here. We're leaving. No need for... We're leaving now. The alarms soon stopped, and station security confirmed that the pirate ships were retreating at maximum speed. The Draconis looked at the humans with even greater awe, their scales now showing patterns that indicated deep respect. You defeated pirates with words alone, one of them said. Truly, humans are the most fearsome species in the galaxy. Later, back in the Earth section of the station, Allison collapsed into her chair. This is getting out of hand. I didn't even get to use a single one of my negotiation points with the Draconis. But the outcome was better than we could have hoped for, Daniel pointed out. The Draconis are now offering us exclusive mining rights in 3 systems, and the Galactic Council is talking about giving Earth responsibility for security in this entire sector. Security? Allison laughed, without humor. Earth has 3 exploration vessels. We don't have a space navy or any kind of military fleet. Dr. Palmer, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up. I've been studying the alien entertainment broadcasts. They've been analyzing human movies as if they were historical documents. There's an entire academic field devoted to human combat studies. That's ridiculous, Frank said. Perhaps, Dr. Palmer replied, but I think we have a moral responsibility to correct this misunderstanding. What happens when they learn the truth? They won't learn it from me, Frank said firmly. Earth is safer with this reputation. We're a small planet with minimal space presence. This misconception is protecting us. Allison stared out the window at the stars. But I'm a diplomat. My job is to communicate truthfully and build genuine understanding between cultures. Your job, Frank countered, is to protect Earth's interests. Later that evening, Allison watched as aliens in the station's common area bowed respectfully as she passed. A small alien child hid behind its parent, peeking at her with a mixture of fear and fascination. She approached Daniel, who was working on a report. I prepared 17 contingency arguments for today's trade negotiation, she said quietly. No one even questioned our terms. Isn't that a good thing? Daniel asked. Is it? Allison replied. We're building relationships on fear and misunderstanding. That's not diplomacy, that's intimidation. Daniel didn't have an answer for that. They both watched as a group of alien diplomats quickly moved out of their path, their body language showing clear deference to the dangerous humans. Allison sighed. Another successful negotiation. Earth gets everything it wants, and I never had to use any of my actual diplomatic skills. The victory felt hollow. Peace had been achieved, but not through understanding or compromise. Not through the careful building of mutual trust that Allison had trained for. Instead, it had come through fear and misconception, and for a true diplomat that felt like no victory at all. A year had passed since the pirate incident. Earth now held a special position in the Galactic Council. Despite having the smallest fleet and no real military presence, humans were respected and feared throughout known space. Allison's team had grown. They now included Ben Martinez, a psychological analyst, and Olivia Grant, a strategic advisor who had previously worked in international conflict resolution on Earth. The Earth diplomatic quarters had expanded to an entire wing of the Galactic Council station. Allison stood at the large window in the main meeting room, staring at the stars. The room behind her buzzed with activity as her team prepared for their next mission. The Krell Empire has moved 3 battle fleets to the border of Lumerian space, Daniel explained, pointing to a holographic map. The Lumerians are peaceful. They have no significant defenses. And the Council wants us to handle this? Allison asked, turning away from the window. They voted unanimously, Frank confirmed. The Krell are the most aggressive species in the sector. No one else wants to face them. But we don't have any warships to send, Allison pointed out. Just our diplomatic vessel. That's all we need, apparently, Daniel said with a small smile. The Council believes that a single ship carrying human negotiators will be enough to make the Krell reconsider. Olivia looked up from her stack of notes. I've prepared 14 different de-escalation strategies based on what we know about Krell psychology. Their hierarchical social structure suggests they respond well to clear power dynamics. And I've analyzed their previous conflicts, Ben added. The Krell typically back down when facing superior force, but they never admit defeat. We need to give them a way to retreat without losing face. Allison nodded, but her expression remained troubled. We'll depart in 3 hours. Everyone be prepared for actual negotiations this time. The Krell may not be as easily intimidated as others we've dealt with. The journey to the border between Krell and Lumerian space took 2 days. Their single Earth ship, the diplomatic Envoy, was small compared to the massive Krell battlecruisers that appeared on their scanners as they approached the meeting point. "That's a lot of firepower," Frank observed as they stared at the view screen showing the Krell fleet. "Each of those ships could destroy us with a single shot." "Then let's hope our reputation continues to protect us," Allison replied. The Krell had agreed to a meeting on a neutral space station positioned between the two territories. The station was small and utilitarian, with none of the elegance of the Galactic Council headquarters. The Krell representatives arrived first. They were large, muscular aliens with thick gray skin and small, angry eyes. They wore elaborate armor decorated with symbols of past victories. The Lumerian representatives, by contrast, were slender beings with smooth blue skin who wore simple white robes. The humans entered last. Allison led the way with her team following behind. The room fell silent as they entered. The Krell representatives shifted uncomfortably, their hands never far from the ceremonial weapons at their sides. "Let us begin," Allison said, taking her seat at the head of the large table. "The Galactic Council has asked us to resolve this border dispute peacefully." The lead Krell representative, General Morg, leaned forward. "There is no dispute. The Lumerian worlds are rich in resources that the Krell Empire requires. They will surrender those resources or face conquest." Olivia slid a datapad toward Allison. It contained the first of her many negotiation strategies, a complex plan involving trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. Before Allison could implement this plan, Ben reached for his cup of water. His hand bumped it accidentally, and the cup tipped over. With quick reflexes, Ben caught it in midair before it could spill, then set it upright on the table. The Krell representative stared at this simple act with wide eyes. General Morg whispered something to one of his advisors. "Your reflexes are impressive, human," Morg said, his tone now more respectful. Ben looked confused. "It was just a cup." The Krell exchanged glances. When they turned back to face the humans, their posture had changed. They seemed more cautious now. "Perhaps we have been hasty," General Morg said slowly. "The Krell Empire might consider a more diplomatic approach to this matter." Allison glanced at Olivia, who looked just as surprised. The complex negotiation strategies they had prepared were suddenly unnecessary. "We would be pleased to help establish fair terms for resource sharing between your peoples," Allison said. Olivia leaned forward, eager to finally put her expertise to use. "I've prepared several proposals that would benefit both the Krell and the Lumerians. These include shared mining operations, technology exchanges, and—" "That will not be necessary," General Morg interrupted. "If the humans believe the Lumerians should retain their independence, the Krell Empire will respect this judgment." "We haven't actually made a judgment yet," Allison pointed out. "We'd like to discuss the details and find a solution that works for everyone." "Of course," Morg replied, though he seemed confused by her response. "But the humans have made their preference clear." "Have we?" Allison asked, looking at her team. "I believe," Ben whispered, "that my catching the cup was interpreted as some kind of threat demonstration." Olivia looked down at her unused negotiation plans with disappointment. "They're backing down before we've even started the actual discussions." The meeting continued, but it was clear that the Krell had already decided to retreat from their invasion plans. They agreed to every suggestion the humans made, no matter how small. By the end of the day, a peace agreement had been signed that was incredibly favorable to the Lumerians. As they left the meeting room, the Lumerian leader approached Allison. "Thank you," the slender alien said with a deep bow. "You have saved our worlds without firing a single shot. Truly, humans are as powerful as the stories say." Allison forced a smile. "We're happy to help." Back on their ship, heading home, the mood should have been celebratory. They had prevented a war. They had saved countless lives. By any measure, the mission had been a complete success. Yet Allison found her team sitting quietly in the ship's common area, their expressions somber. "We should be happy," she said, looking around at them. "I prepared 19 different psychological approaches to use with the Krell," Ben said, holding up his unused notes. "I analyzed their cultural responses to conflict, their hierarchy systems, their honor codes, and none of it mattered. I had conflict resolution models specifically designed for resource disputes, Olivia added. I've been working on them for months. Daniel shook his head. This is getting ridiculous. We're not actually doing any negotiating. We just show up and everyone assumes we're going to destroy them if they don't agree. Frank, who had been quiet until now, crossed his arms. The mission was successful. Peace was achieved. Isn't that what matters? Of course it matters, Allison replied. But we're diplomats. We're supposed to build understanding, find compromise, create real solutions. Instead, we're just intimidating everyone. I spent years studying strategic diplomatic approaches, Olivia said quietly. I've never actually gotten to use any of them. The ship continued its journey back to the Galactic Council station. Later that night, Allison sat alone in her quarters, looking at her untouched binder of meticulously prepared negotiation strategies. Another crisis resolved, she muttered to herself. Another war prevented. Another victory for Earth diplomacy. She should have felt proud. Instead, she felt strangely hollow. Peace had been achieved, but not through skill or understanding or careful negotiation. It had been achieved through fear and misunderstanding. Another crisis resolved without a single. One of my actual arguments being heard, Allison said to the empty room. Wonderful. 2 years had passed since Earth first joined the Galactic Council. In that time, humans had gained a strange reputation. While they were feared and respected throughout the galaxy, they had also become known for looking oddly disappointed whenever conflicts were resolved peacefully. Aliens whispered about how Earth diplomats would arrive at crisis zones with cases full of documents and plans, only to sigh deeply when the mere sight of them caused aggressive species to back down. Some believed this was a sign of human bloodlust, that they secretly hoped for violence. Others thought it was some strange ritual of humility. No one had figured out the truth, that Earth's negotiators just wanted to use their actual diplomatic skills. Allison sat in her large office on the Galactic Council station. Her walls were covered with awards and honors from various alien civilizations. Peacekeeper of the Orion Sector, Guardian of the Vesperi colonies, Honorary Warlord of the Taurian Hegemony. None of them mentioned diplomacy or negotiation skills. A knock at her door broke her concentration. Daniel entered, followed by a man Allison didn't recognize. This is Richard Collins, Daniel said. He just arrived from Earth. Director Matthews sent him to join our team. Richard Collins was an older man with kind eyes and gray hair. He extended his hand to Allison with a warm smile. Chief Negotiator Wright, he said. It's an honor to meet you. Your reputation on Earth is legendary. The way you've prevented multiple wars and established Earth as a respected power in galactic politics is remarkable. Allison shook his hand but exchanged a concerned glance with Daniel. Has Director Matthews briefed you on the unique nature of our diplomatic position here? Richard looked confused. I was told I'd be using my 40 years of diplomatic experience to help negotiate complex interspecies agreements. Is there something else I should know? Before Allison could answer, an urgent message came through on her computer. She read it quickly, her expression growing serious. The Taurian hegemony is threatening to break their peace treaty with the Maludians, she said. The council has called an emergency session. We need to go now. Perfect timing, Richard said cheerfully. I specialized in treaty disputes back on Earth. As they hurried through the station corridors, Allison tried to explain the situation to Richard. There's something you should understand about how we operate here. No time now, Daniel interrupted as they reached the council chambers. They're waiting for us. The Grand Council chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species. At the center was a raised platform where the dispute would be addressed. The Taurian representatives, large beings with thick skin and 4 arms, stood on one side. The small, furry Maludians stood on the other, looking nervous. Allison led her team to the central position between the two groups. She could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching her, expecting her to work the human magic that had resolved so many conflicts before. The council recognizes Earth negotiator Allison Wright and her team, announced the council speaker, a tall, willowy alien. They will mediate this dispute. Richard stepped forward confidently before Allison could stop him. Thank you, honored council members. I am Richard Collins, new member of the Earth diplomatic team. Before we begin formal proceedings, I would like to clarify something. Allison felt a sense of dread. She tried to catch Richard's eye to signal him to stop, but he continued. I understand there may be some misconceptions about humans in the galactic community, Richard said clearly. I feel it's important to establish truth before we proceed. Humans are not the fearsome warriors many believe us to be. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Taurian representatives shifted uncomfortably. In fact, Richard continued, humans are physically weaker than many species represented here. Our strength lies not in combat but in communication, cooperation, and finding common ground. We have devoted ourselves to diplomacy precisely because of our comparative physical disadvantages. Complete silence fell over the chamber. Aliens stared at Richard, then at Allison and her team as if seeing them for the first time. Is this true? Asked the lead Taurian representative, his voice filled with disbelief. Allison stepped forward. There was no point in continuing the charade now. Yes, it's true. Humans are not exceptional warriors. Our entertainment media, what many of you have studied as battle documentation, is fictional. Those are stories, not reality. The silence grew heavier. Then suddenly one of the Taurians laughed. It was a harsh, grating sound. So all this time we have been afraid of nothing? The great human warriors are just soft-skinned diplomats with no real power? Our diplomatic skills are real, Allison insisted. We have centuries of experience resolving conflicts between different cultures on our own world. But no military might to back your words, the Taurian leader said, his tone dismissive. In that case, we see no reason to continue this discussion. The Taurian hegemony withdraws from all treaties negotiated by humans. We will take what we want from the Meludians. The Meludian representatives chittered in fear. Other species in the chamber began talking all at once. Some seemed angry, others confused. The council speaker tried unsuccessfully to restore order. In the midst of the chaos, Allison gathered her team in a corner of the chamber. Well, that could have gone better, Richard said, looking genuinely confused by the reaction. I thought clearing up the misunderstanding would help establish honest diplomatic relations. That misunderstanding was the foundation of our influence here, Frank said angrily. Earth has no actual power in this region of space. We were respected because they thought we were dangerous. So what do we do now? Daniel asked, looking at Allison. For the first time in 2 years, Allison smiled genuinely. Now we do what we were trained to do. We negotiate, for real this time. But without our fearsome reputation, Ben began. Without our fearsome reputation, we'll have to rely on our actual skills, Allison said. Her eyes had a new light in them. I've been waiting for this opportunity for 2 years. She turned to Olivia. Bring every strategy you've developed. Ben, I need your psychological profiles of the Taurians. Daniel, get me all the data on trade relations between the species involved. The team looked at her with surprise, then began to nod with growing enthusiasm. You seem happy, Richard observed, still confused. I am, Allison admitted. For the first time since we arrived, we get to be real diplomats. That night, the Earth team worked through the night in their office. They analyzed data, prepared proposals, and developed multiple approaches to the crisis. There was an energy in the room that had been missing for a long time. As morning approached, Allison looked around at her exhausted but animated team. This is what we trained for, she told them with a genuine smile. Let's show them what real Earth diplomacy looks like. The emergency session of the Galactic Council reconvened the next morning. The large chamber was filled with tension. Many species that had signed treaties with Earth now questioned their validity. The Taurians stood proudly, clearly believing they had exposed a great deception. The small Meludians huddled together, fearful of their future now that human protection seemed worthless. Allison and her team entered the chamber last. They carried data pads and actual paper documents, tools of their trade that had mostly gone. unused until now. Richard looked nervous, still not fully understanding the chaos his honest words had caused. The rest of the team, however, shared a strange energy and focus that confused the watching aliens. "The Council recognizes Earth negotiator Allison Wright," announced the Council speaker. "You may address the situation you have created." Allison stepped to the center of the chamber. Unlike previous Council sessions, there was no automatic respect in the aliens' postures now. Many looked angry, others disappointed. Some seemed almost amused. "Honored representatives of the Galactic Council," Allison began, her voice clear and confident. "Yesterday a truth was revealed that has upset the balance of power as you understood it. Yes, humans are not the unstoppable warriors of your stories. We are simply diplomats, scientists, and explorers." The Taurian leader stepped forward. "You deceived the entire galaxy. All treaties with Earth are now invalid." "We never claimed to be warriors," Allison countered calmly. "You assumed this based on our entertainment media. We simply failed to correct this misunderstanding." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Allison continued before they could grow louder. "But now I ask you to consider something important. In the 2 years since Earth joined the Council, what have we actually done?" She gestured to her team, who began distributing data pads to key representatives. "We have helped negotiate 17 major trade agreements that benefited all parties involved. We have prevented 3 wars. We have mediated dozens of territorial disputes. And we did all of this without firing a single shot or making a single threat." Ben stepped forward with a large display screen. It showed economic data from regions where Earth had helped establish peace. "These are the growth patterns in trade and prosperity where peaceful solutions were implemented," he explained. "Every species involved has seen substantial economic benefits." Olivia activated another display showing cultural exchange statistics. "And these are the increases in interspecies understanding and cooperation following our diplomatic missions." The council chamber grew quieter as the aliens studied the data. Dr. Palmer joined Allison at the center. "We created cultural exchange programs between species that had been enemies for generations," she said. "The Zoraxians and Vesperi are now leading research partners. The Meludians have been teaching their musical traditions to Draconis children." The small, furry Meludian representative found courage to speak up. "This is true. Before the humans came, we feared everyone. Now our artists travel to 12 different worlds." Allison nodded her thanks to the Meludian. "You believed we achieved these things through intimidation. But ask yourselves, would lasting peace and prosperity come from fear? Or did they come from finding genuine solutions that benefited everyone?" The council chamber remained silent as representatives considered her words. The Taurian leader seemed less certain now, his aggressive posture softening slightly. Richard, who had been watching carefully, stepped forward. "May I address the council?" he asked Allison, who nodded. "I am new here," he began. "I did not know about the misconception regarding human nature, but I have spent 40 years studying diplomacy. True diplomacy isn't about forcing others to do what you want. It's about finding what everyone truly needs and building solutions together." He turned to face the Taurian leader directly. "You believe the Meludians have resources you require. Instead of taking them by force, why not consider what the Meludians need that you can provide? Perhaps there is an exchange that benefits you both." The Taurian leader's forearms crossed defensively. "The strong take what they need. That is the way of the galaxy." "Is it?" Daniel asked, stepping forward with another data display. "Our analysis shows that cooperative species consistently outperform aggressive ones in long-term prosperity. War destroys resources. Peace creates them." For hours, the Earth team presented their case, not with threats or intimidation, but with data, reason, and carefully constructed arguments. They showed economic projections, cultural benefits, and security advantages of continued cooperation. Each member of the team used their specialty to address different concerns. Ben analyzed the psychological needs of each species involved. Olivia presented strategic plans that offered advantages to all parties. Frank, surprisingly, provided insights into how military resources could be better used for joint defense rather than fighting each other. As the session continued, something remarkable happened. The aliens began to engage with the actual content of the humans' arguments. They asked questions, raised objections, and offered counter-proposals. Real negotiation was happening for the first time. By late evening, the Taurian leader stood again. The chamber grew quiet, everyone exhausted from the day's intense discussions. The Taurian hegemony has reconsidered its position, he announced, his voice gruff but no longer hostile. While we were angered by the revelation about human nature, we cannot deny the logic of their arguments. The proposed joint mining operation, with the Maludians with Taurian security and Maludian environmental management, would indeed be more profitable than conquest. A ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. Slowly, other representatives stood to speak. The Zoraxian Collective also affirms its treaties with Earth, said their ambassador. Not out of fear, but because they have proven beneficial. One by one, nearly every species represented reaffirmed their agreements with Earth. Some still seemed hesitant, others enthusiastic, but all had been genuinely persuaded by the humans' diplomatic efforts. As the session finally ended, Allison's team gathered in the corridor outside. They were exhausted but shared a sense of genuine accomplishment. "We did it," Olivia said, smiling tiredly. "We actually negotiated a real solution." "And it was so much more work than just looking scary," Daniel added with a laugh. Richard shook, his head in wonder. "I've never seen diplomacy quite like that. You've developed some truly impressive techniques out here." "We've had a lot of time to prepare," Allison replied. 2 years of writing arguments we never got to use." A new alien representative approached them carefully, a species they hadn't worked with before. "Humans," the alien said hesitantly. "May I ask you something? Is it true that you really aren't the galaxy's most fearsome warriors?" Richard started to explain again, but Allison gently interrupted him. "We're not warriors," she said with a knowing smile. "We're diplomats, and that in its own way is far more formidable." The alien considered this, then bowed respectfully before departing. "You know," Daniel said as they walked back to their quarters, "this is going to be a lot more work from now on. No more quick solutions just by showing up." "Good," Allison replied, her eyes bright with satisfaction. "That's exactly what we came here for." For the first time in 2 years, Earth's negotiators didn't look disappointed that peace had won, because this time, it had won through the strength of their actual skills, their knowledge, and their understanding. They had finally shown the galaxy what real Earth diplomacy looked like, and it was more impressive than any imagined warrior could ever be.